What's up, you guys? It's Derek and Lindsay here.
Have you ever had a friend, or maybe you're even the person that went and spent, I don't know, a crazy amount of money, like $500,000, and then the next day had the, oh no, what did I just put my money down on, and try to undo it? Well, later in our video, we're going to cover a story just like that. As a stockbroker, I encountered that scenario, so stay tuned. But before we get to that point,
go ahead and smash that like button down below and comment anything you want about maybe the craziest story you've heard, and also subscribe to our channel. Honestly, I am so excited for this video because it's one of my favorite things to just talk about these stories. They are so funny and just so crazy, and you're like, okay, these are huge mistakes that nobody should ever make.
now if you're new to the channel, I'm a former stockbroker for the Vanguard Group. So in this video, we're going to be talking about stories and experiences that I had as a broker that are a little on the crazy side.
The first story we're going to tell is actually about this guy who wanted to buy a boat.
Just to give you a little bit of background, so the guy that wanted to buy a boat, he was a custodian for a UTMA account. Now stick with me, this is important for the story. So a UTMA account is an account for a minor that's managed by a custodian who is an adult. It doesn't have to be a parent or a guardian, they just have to be an adult, and they also need to do everything in the best interest of the minor, because what happens is with these accounts, the money given to the minor is a gift to the minor, meaning that money, those funds, are the minor's. So with our story, I'm talking to this guy on the phone, and he's the custodian of this UTMA account for his son. He wanted to withdraw $54,000
from his son's money.
From his son's money, almost liquidating it. And I asked him, sir, if you don't mind me asking, what are the funds for?
Because usually they're things for, like, you know, braces or anything that's like for the interest of the child, because you have to be able to prove this to the IRS.
For the benefit of the minor. And so I asked him, hey sir, is this for the benefit of the minor? It's not something that Vanguard is going to be policing, but you'll need to prove it to the IRS that it was for the benefit of the minor. And his response was a little taken back, but he said, I'm going to buy a boat. And I asked him, well sir, is it going to be in your boat or your son's boat?
He said he's
like, well, it's going to be my boat.
Yeah, he'll be pulled behind the boat, right? Isn't that what he said?
He'll be
pulled behind the boat.
Yeah, he'll be pulled behind the boat.
So he'll be benefiting.
So he'll be benefiting.
I don't know how well the IRS is going to take that.
It's really like those stories that you hear of a parent that opens up credit cards in their kids' names, but then they use them and the kid finds out later that their credit card's been destroyed. Leave a comment down below if that's happened to you.
We took a money management class together when we were in college. And there was a girl who started talking about how her parents had used her social security number to open up like a phone bill or something like that, like some sort of utility.
A utility, yeah.
And they had destroyed her credit.
Because they never paid it. They opened it in their baby girl's name.
But she's telling this story. She
Yeah.
told this story in class as if nothing was wrong, and Derek and both of our jaws just hit the floor. We were like, your parents used you for fraud.
That's fraud. And now her credit's destroyed.
I can't, it like shocked me because she was like, well, you know, my parents did this. And we were both like, they did what?
Now, if you're a parent, don't do that.
Don't do this.
Back to the story. So he took out the $54,000. I read him the rules. I told him we're not going to police it. You have to watch out for that. But can you believe that? He took $54,000 from his son. Guys, this is mismanagement. That son was supposed to be able to invest with those. It also triggered taxable events because it had been invested for years. So, guys, that's crazy.
I really wish that we could follow up to see what happened to that dude in the IRS, to be totally honest. Yeah. Like, I really want to know. All right, guys, we're going to go ahead and get into the $500,000 story because honestly, the last two stories we have are even crazier than the one we're about to tell you.
So this story is about two ladies, and it deals with $500,000. I think what they did was right, and how they went about it was completely wrong. So here's the story. So I'm on the phone, I get a client, and it is this individual. I get them through security, open up their account, ask them what's going on. And I hear somebody else on the phone. I'm like, okay, well, there's more than one person on the phone. Get that person through security, figure out what's going on. So it turns out I'm looking at a joint brokerage account that has about $500,000 in it, and I'm talking to the two owners. They decided to pull their life investments together and put $500,000 into the Vanguard S&P 500. Historically, so if you guys are facing a question of, hey, I've got a lump sum and I want to invest, so here's an investing principle for you. So historically, it shows that if you have a lump sum, if you're investing for longer than 10 years, you are better off putting the lump sum into the investments versus dollar cost averaging that. Back to the story though, these two individuals had good intentions. They put $500,000 into the S&P 500. However, they had no idea what they had actually done. They didn't know what the 500 index was. They barely knew what Vanguard was, which it's the second largest asset management company in the world. Here's the issue. They called, got me, lovely Derek, and unfortunately, between the time that they had put it in and about 3 days later,
several days,
few days later, the market went down 2%. Now 2% on their investment was about $12,000. Now to lose about $12,000 in less than a week was unsettling to these two women.
Which is understandable.
Which is understandable if you don't understand the market. And I say that because they called and said, Vanguard, I quote, sold me a lemon. And I'm sitting there thinking, a lemon?
Like a car?
Like a car? They said Vanguard stole our money. They tricked us, they put the money in, and you guys took $12,000 right away. I'm like, well, we have expense ratios that are 95% lower than the industry average. We didn't take your money, the market did. The market fluctuated and unfortunately dropped 2% and you lost your money.
Well, and then you tried to explain to them, because remember you were like, well, if you look at it the other way, what if you got all these gains and we decided to take your gains?
Right, think about this, guys.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, we lost 12,000. I want you to give it back to me. I'm like, well, what if we went up and you gained 12,000? We came to you and said, we want some of that. Simply said, I can't get you 12,000 back. But then they tried to negotiate. Well, Derek, can't you just give us like part of it back? Like maybe 6,000? Can't you take part of the loss? I'm like, take part of the loss? How are we going to take part of the loss?
This is just how the stock market works. Like, this is not Vanguard stealing your money. The stock market goes up and down, and you either you lose and you gain money over time. That's just how the market works. And they were just not understanding how like the basic premise of the stock market works.
Yeah, guys, like I said, they were really well-intentioned. They knew they had to get invested. They just didn't do their research. And once they lost money, there was a deep emotional connection to it where they wanted to back out right away. Now, I can totally understand that, and I've talked to over 10,000 individuals, tens of thousands of individuals, and so I get that. There's a huge emotional side, but the more research you do, the less emotional you'll become to it, and unfortunately, these two individuals did not do their research, and they wanted to back out immediately after they put into it. And as their broker, it was hard to explain that to them, to say, look, we're just the mediator, Vanguard. You put your money here and we allow you to enter into the market, but we don't hold your 500,000 and we don't participate in your gains or your loss. We just have our expense ratio and allow you entry in and out of that market.
Well, even after this, they were still very, very upset, and they threatened to go to the media to explain that Vanguard had sold them a lemon and that their commercial was going to be that Vanguard took their money.
Now, they literally say our commercial will be Vanguard took our money. Now, it really hurt me because as a stockbroker, I act as a fiduciary, meaning I have their best interests in mind above my own. So it was difficult for me to say, guys, you know what? This is just 1 week.
And we did the math. If they had stayed in, they would have over $1 million today.
It's close to $1.2 million that they would have had
if they
from
stayed
the
in.
day I talked to them to this week. If they had stayed invested, even with the 2% dip at that time, today, their $500,000 would be worth almost $1.2 million.
And what was that, like 7 years ago?
Yeah, guys, that was less than 7 years ago. Less than 10 years. They were well intended. They were in a good investment. And if they held to their goals, they would have been really well off.
I really hope they did. I hope they did.
I hope that they didn't take it out.
All right, you guys, this next story I'm just gonna entitle How to Be the Worst Criminal Ever.
Now, with investing, as you can imagine, there's a lot of people who try to game the system, who try to get rich quick. Part of that can make you look like a criminal.
Or you could be an actual criminal.
Or you can be an actual criminal. So here's another story. As a stockbroker, I received a client on the phone and I was talking to her, and she was a new client. I didn't have any account for her, and I said, okay, well, how can I help you? And she wanted to open up an account and start investing. So I was like, oh, you know what? I can help you with that. Are you online? I said I could do it for you, or you could do it online. She said she was online, but the system wasn't allowing her to do it. So I said, you know what?
Let's go through it.
Let's go through it. I'll go ahead. I'll help you out. We'll get it done over the phone. No problem. And so I got all of her information that I needed, but something on my side wasn't working right. And she kept changing her birth date.
Well, and then you asked her if she had ever had an account before.
Right, because the way the system was behaving, it acted like, you know, we might have her in our system. And she said, no, I've never had an account with Vanguard. This is my first time. And so I was like, okay, you know, normally I don't need this because it can be added later, but can I have your social security number? And that way I can just make sure that you're not in our system. So I get her social security number, which helps with the date of birth issue. Again, she was changing it, which isn't a good sign. And
who doesn't know their date of birth, right?
Right. And you wouldn't believe it. 13 accounts show up on my side. I'm like, okay, well, this lady says she has no account with us.
Never did.
Yeah.
Apparently she has 13.
Lo and behold, here's 13. And so I open up the first one, and there are over 50 fraud alerts on the account saying, don't acknowledge that this person has an account here. Don't acknowledge that we can help her. She has fraudulently tried to do this, 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 and this. And so I'm a little taken back, and she notices, she's like, is there something wrong? I'm like,
no.
Can I put you on a brief hold, please? And so I put her on hold, and I started looking through it, like, oh my gosh, this lady. And so I go into the account with all these alerts.
Well, because the alerts were like, don't let her know that you know.
Don't let her know that you know, because she was actively being investigated by our fraud department to say, what is going on? Why is this lady doing what she's doing? And so here's a little insight of what she was doing. She was opening these accounts, and she would open up a fake bank account to it, or a bank account that she was trying to gain access to. And she would try to pull out anywhere from $2 million up to $9 million.
Just millions of dollars.
Into her brokerage account. So she would set up that bank account. Now, if you haven't watched our How to Invest video, we'll put it in the cards for you so you can look at it to see this process. But just real quick, she would link her bank account, or a bank account, and set up her brokerage account to that and try to pull $2 to $9 million out and do multiple transactions.
That didn't exist.
Now, here guys, remember what Lindsay said, how to be the worst criminal? This is so dumb. If the money is not there, it's not going to show up in Vanguard.
Yeah, you can't transfer funds that don't exist.
And if you don't have access to the bank, Vanguard's not going to magically just pull money randomly from bank accounts. You have to verify you're the owner, verify that you have access to it. You can't just open up an account and say, hey, Vanguard, I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever. Here's a bank account at some bank. Just pull out some amount of money and I'll see you later. It's not how real world works. So,
but she had tried to do this apparently 13 times at least.
She had tried to do it 13 times. Not once, but 13.
And she kept using the same name and the same social security number. That's the other dumb part, I think. This is the worst criminal ever.
It's so dumb. It's
I have
like,
so
okay,
many parts of it. You're the worst criminal ever.
The system's stopping you. You don't have millions of dollars. The system's not letting you put millions of dollars in. Anyway, so for those reasons, she was being investigated. And guys, that's just dumb. Right?
Don't do fraud.
Don't do fraud.
Don't do fraud. Don't break the law.
Don't try to guess somebody else's bank account and pull the money into yours. I mean, that is literally what she was trying to do.
Especially millions of dollars. What the heck?
This industry is the most regulated industry in the world. It's not going to work. It's not going to work.
It's not going to work. All right, guys, this next story is my favorite because it is truly insane. I mean, it is so crazy because this person actually tried to fly to the corporate office to get his money from the corporate Vanguard office in Pennsylvania.
So a little bit of background on this one, guys. So as a stockbroker, I had the opportunity to train over 300 other stockbrokers, and I was training one of these stockbrokers, and we get this call from a client. Unfortunately, we weren't able to find them in our system, and talking to them a little bit longer, we find out that this individual is at our headquarters in Pennsylvania at the gate trying to get their money.
There's no money there, guys. Like, there's no vault.
Guys, we're not a bank.
And the funny part is Vanguard has 2 locations. They have like their big corporate headquarters where there's no money in Pennsylvania. And then they have the place where like all their representatives and like their stockbrokers and stuff like that, which is in Scottsdale, Arizona. Again, there's no money there.
There's no money.
There's no vaults. There's no cash.
We're not a bank. And it's gated. You can't physically get on there. People can't walk into the
there's
campus.
like guards everywhere. You can't go in.
Yeah, so anyway, they're on the phone saying, hey, Derek, I am at your gate. Will you let me in? I'm like, you're at my gate.
And you're in Arizona.
And I'm in Arizona. I'm like, well, what gate are you talking about? Well, in Pennsylvania. I'm like, you're not at my gate. I can tell you that right now.
You're definitely not here at my gate. Didn't he also say he was like, he used his last dollars to fly there to get the money out of the account?
Yeah, so
he was like, I used my last bit of money to fly here to get this cash, and I can't go home without it because I have no more money.
I have no more money. I spent my last dollar on a plane ticket to fly here to get my money out of Vanguard.
Wasn't he also across the street at a phone, like at a gas station or something? Like he was using some phone at a gas station across the street?
Went across the street, was calling us from a gas station or some store nearby.
Some store's phone.
We were on the phone for over an hour with this individual. We were trying to help them. Like I mentioned, we act as a fiduciary, so even if it's a crazy story, we're going to see if we can help you. What happened, again, mind you, I'm training a brand new stockbroker, and this is one of their first calls. So bad perspective on them.
Yeah, I feel bad for the poor trainee, because that guy's probably like, oh my gosh, are all my calls going to be like this?
Right.
No.
This is like 1 out of 1,000. We try to help this individual out, and we do archive everything. So you send a piece of paper in, it's scanned and archived, and we'll be able to find it years later. And so we were able to do that. We were able to find an account that this individual had with us, and so we look at the paperwork, we see it, we go through it, and it's a transfer form. So what had actually happened is this individual had an account with us, an IRA with us, and they had transferred it to another broker. So we get back on the phone with this individual and say, look, you transferred the money out of here almost 9 years ago. We don't have any account for you. We don't have any funds here for you. You need to reach out to that broker. And they had forgotten that they had done that and actually didn't believe us until we described the process, described the form, and they didn't want to get off the phone. That's another crazy part, is they were like, well, you call them and you get them on the phone with me and you figure out where my money is. Like, I'm not going to find out where your money is. Like, I'm not going to call around to all these other brokers. This was a decade ago, and I legally can't call and get your account. Yeah. You have to do that. You have to pull up your big boy pants and you have to call them. I'm so sorry that you have made so many bad decisions flying here, trying to get to our bank that doesn't exist.
The crazy thing, the flying to Pennsylvania using your last dollars to get your money that you need to fly back home to like Ohio or wherever.
I feel terrible for the guy. I truly do. We were on the phone for over an hour. We found this paperwork that was over 9 years old. We were trying our best to be able to help this individual. We did hope that there was an account with us that we could send to a bank account or liquidate and send them a check to help them out. Obviously, they needed the money. Obviously, as a fiduciary, we wanted to do what's best for them. But the bottom line was we couldn't help them because we didn't have their account. They had transferred it.
And even if there was an account, you couldn't just hand them cash. Even in Pennsylvania, even where he was at the Pennsylvania headquarters, they couldn't, there's no cash.
We would mail them a check. So say in the scenario we had their account, we would have helped them out. If they needed us to liquidate it, we would have liquidated it. If they had a bank on account, which is ideal, we would have transferred the funds ACH to them.
Which still would take a couple of days.
It still would have taken 2 or 3 days. Now, I mean, getting a little technical, we could have wired the funds if their bank allowed us to receive a wire, so they could have got the next day. Worst case scenario, we mailed them a check. But they're in Pennsylvania and flew from like Ohio or some other state.
Something like that.
The funds would go there, not to the front door of our building.
So I really hope that guy made it home. I mean,
Yeah, again, this is one I couldn't follow up on, but as a stockbroker hearing it, this is kind of a crazier side because you never have anyone come to the building asking for their money. Right
yeah,
there.
that was definitely like the first shock factor is like, wait a minute, you're actually you flew to the building to try to get your cash?
Why didn't you call before you flew, right? Why didn't we have this conversation before
over the
that?
phone? Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
It was another thing where we didn't have all the detail, and I don't think any fraud was there because we did find paperwork.
All right, guys, we've had a lot of fun talking about these crazy stories that are super funny, but they all do kind of have a basic moral, which is there is no stupid question when it comes to investing because obviously crazier things happen every day.
So in your research to investing, if you feel like you're stuck and you have a question, feel free to call your broker. At least with Vanguard, I can speak to that. They have trained brokers who are licensed to be able to talk to you. On the licensing part, I recommend that you ask and see if they have a Series 7. If they have a Series 6, you'll still be able to get some of the information that you need. So these stories are funny, they're fun to go through, but it just shows that call if you have a question, especially if your money's there. If your money's not there, guess what? You can still call and you can still talk to somebody.
And you will probably not be the craziest person that talked to them today or this week.
No, definitely not. And especially if it's an investment question, because think about it, these guys are there, guys and girls are there to be able to educate, to guide, to teach you how to do it yourself. So if you have an investment question, those are the calls that they look forward to.
Not the guys who are trying to get cash from Pennsylvania.
Yeah, don't try to rob them.
Not the fraud people. Thanks so much for watching, you guys. We really enjoyed going through these stories with you. They give us a lot of laughs. We love telling them. They're so funny.
If you have any experience calling a broker or a funny story that you'd like to share, please leave a comment down below. We would love to hear your experience. If you haven't already, please subscribe and make sure to leave a thumbs up.